Matt Bernier with the DRFBets race of the day for Thursday, January the 10th. Race number 7 at the Big A mile and an eighth on the main track. This is a non-winners of one other than optional claimer for New York breds. Before we dive into the field, I'd encourage you to head on over to bets.drf.com. Particularly if you're a new sign-up member, you can get a great sign-up bonus. All the details, bets.drf.com is the address. Let's take a look at this field going 9 furlongs on the main track. You can head on over to the Race of the Day page on DRF.com, download free formulator past performances. I will take this field in post position order, give you some little tidbits here and there. The number 1, Peter's Project. This is a horse first off the claim for Ralph D'Alessandro. Highest last out buyer in the field with an 87. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if this horse ran well, but you have to factor in the company that this horse has been keeping. And at 3-1, this horse is no great shakes. I think he's going to be facing the toughest company he's faced in quite some time. That most recent run, sure, he won by 4 lengths, but the runner-up came back and earned a 67 buyer. I know the 5th place finisher was the next out winner, but only earned a 72. This one is going to be facing the best horses he's faced in quite some time, perhaps with the exception of Broadway Bay, who he ran into 2 starts back and humbled him by more than 4 lengths. Peter's Project can certainly win this race. I just don't know that I love him at 3-1. The 2 horse in here, Calculated Risker. If you look at Calculated Risker and just say strictly he's faced better horses than he's going to face in this spot, he makes all the sense in the world. There are also some other big keys to a horse like this. He is going to be going from the open N2X level back to the state bred N1X level. Sure, he's in for the 25 tag, but you look and see, it just didn't seem like he was really able to get over the hump there when they faced him in the Stakes Company 2 back in the Empire Classic and that open N2X most recently. 3 starts back, he was actually a winner. I know it was a sloppy sealed track, but he was a winner over state bred N2X company. So he's already kind of proven himself at a level like this. It's going to be interesting to see what he gets from a pace standpoint. Let's talk about the Timeform US pace projector a little bit. They don't have any sort of fast pace or slow pace. They think it's going to be a relatively reasonable one. And they have the number 8 Fox Rules out there on the front end. Now, we'll talk about Fox Rules more in depth as we get to him later on, but that's my only real concern with a horse like Calculated Risker. I think he fits in here really nicely, but at the end of the day, is he going to be pace compromised? And a mile and an eighth, I understand that can be a great equalizer for these horses. I'm just not totally convinced at this point right now that he's going to get the pace that he needs. I think he's going to come with his run, but maybe a minor award is all that he can settle for. But for what it's worth, that most recent run, boy, did he run into some good horses. Mr. Buff was a next out winner with a 97. The 5th place finisher, a next out winner with a 93. I think if you're playing multi-race wagers, I think you at least want to consider him at the very least. From a win standpoint, outright though, to me, I'm using him underneath. The 3, Here Comes Tommy. Blinkers go on for this horse. There's really not a heck of a lot for me to say here. Recent form leaves something to be desired. 3 for 58 overall, 26 times. Second or third. To me, if you're going to be using this horse, use him underneath at all. I don't know that this distance necessarily works for him. For the most part in his career, he's been going 1 turn. They've tried him on turf. They tried him on the main track. Just hasn't really worked no matter where they run him, really. He's just more of a nibbler than anything else. That's what I'd be using him as, an underneath kind of horse. Broadway Bay, spoke about him a little bit earlier when I brought up Peter's Project, his most recent run. No match for Peter's Project, beaten by more than 4 lengths. To be frank, if I don't think Peter's Project has a great chance in here, or I shouldn't say that. I don't like him at a short price, and I still don't love his chances. It's hard for me to make a case for Broadway Bay. 4 starts back, you've got a very competitive buyer speed figure of an 83. If it comes up wet, you want to move this horse up considerably. 5 for 13 lifetime on a wet track, but to be fair, I just don't know that I love his chances in here coming in from Finger Lakes. The 5 is Hall Anchor. Now, Hall Anchor goes out for Rudy Rodriguez, owned and trained by Rudy. The most recent run, Open 12-5 company, went out there and won by almost 11 lengths. That was first off the claim for Rudy. That was at a 1-turn mile. I don't know if this distance is going to work for this horse, but I like the fact that this one can be into the run a little bit, but doesn't have to have the lead. Rudy's barn is moving at a pretty good number right here at this point. The signed-on rider is only clipping off about 3% right now, 1 for 32, but it is what it is. Sometimes you find good horses, sometimes you don't. I just think this is an interesting spot for this horse. Jacking him up in class, goes into the New York bred ranks. We'll find out if he can handle the stretch out and distance and better horses, but in the grand scheme of things, I thought he ran relatively well in that start. First off the claim for Rudy, and good. And again, when Rudy gets him good, they usually stay good for an extended period of time. The number 6 is Zabayon. This is a horse that, again, from a form standpoint recently, leaves a little bit to be desired. 0 for 6 at this 1.125 distance, 0 for 7 at Aqueduct as a whole, 3 for 27 overall, 12 times a minor award winner. Again, I mean, if this thing turns into a war of attrition, perhaps, but even having said that, I don't know that this horse is still going to be able to get the job done. It feels like he is much more of a nibbler than anything else, and at 8 years old, they just have to question overall where his form is at this point. You get the 5-pound Bug Gutierrez aboard. The number 7 is Local Counsel. Now, Local Counsel, to me, is very, very intriguing in here. The real reasons, you look at the pedigree, I think the distance isn't going to be an issue for him. He's by Union Rags. 2 starts back, he broke his maiden in emphatic fashion by almost 10 lengths. He's basically taking money in almost every one of his career starts at this point. But then they tried winners with him for the first time most recently, and there was some honest pace signed on, and he never really made up any kind of ground. But you'll note that the 7th place finisher is the only horse that has exited that race to come back and run so far. He came back and won with a 71 buyer. That was the 7th place finisher. He finished 3rd that day, this horse, Local Counsel. I think there's some reasons to believe that you might be looking still at a forward move here for this horse from Mark Henning. Distance-wise, I don't know that it's an issue. Consider, he went 1.125 at Saratoga back on August the 5th. That was his first start in about 2 months. He was leading and he got run down by a horse that was a next out winner. So I think this is actually within his scope. And at the price, if you told me that I was guaranteed to get 7-2, I'd be very, very intrigued in taking him. I do like Local Counsel a little bit in this spot. And the last horse is Fox Rules. Now, Fox Rules talked about it. He's going to be the one, according to the Timeform US pace projector, that is dictating things out on the front end. He's been very, very successful throughout his career, no question about it. Whether it's dirt, whether it's turf, doesn't matter. He just shows up and runs. The concern I have is his recent sort of form or his recent campaign has predominantly been on turf, and has that been for a reason? Has it been a physical thing? We're talking about a 10-year-old now, and has the turf just been a little bit kinder to him physically than perhaps the main track has? We have a formulator fact for you, and I think you can make the call on this however you'd like for David Canizzo, because the raw statistic isn't great, but the return on investment is solid. Past 5 years, turf to dirt and route races, only 2 for 29, 11 times in the money, but a 334 ROI. So, again, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. It's not a high percentage strike rate, but at the same time, when they do clip, it's usually at a decent number. If you believe you're going to get 6-1 on Fox Rules, you believe that Junior's going to be able to get him out of there and clear off to the front, perhaps this is an interesting spot. For what it's worth, this horse is 0 for 5 at 1.125 on the main track. So it is an interesting race here. This is the 7th at Aqueduct on Thursday, the Thursday DRFBets race of the day. Let's throw up the pick. And I probably tipped my hand a little bit, but I'm at a point right now where I kind of know what many of these other horses are, and I don't totally know what Local Counsel is just yet at this point. I think Local Counsel, if you believe he can take a step forward here, I think there's reason to believe that perhaps he's the one with the upside in here, and I know he's sort of plateaued in that mid to high 70 range, but if he takes a step forward here in the stretch out in distance, I think he is interesting. He has tactical speed. And the 9-2 morning line, I'm really intrigued with. So the 7, Local Counsel for me. In Thursday's DRFBets race of the day, the 7th at the Big A. If you're playing this race, you're playing any race at Aqueduct, you're playing any race anywhere. You should be playing on DRFBets, and if you're a new sign-up member, you've got a sweet bonus deal waiting for you. Bets.drf.com is the address. Head on over there, get all the details. Schedule a post time for the 7th at the Big A on Thursday, just before 4 o'clock, 3:58. Good luck.